Welcome to Pandamix, Healing Conversations and Practices for In-Between Times.
This is Dr. Home and the Reverend Ling Lim. In this episode, which is the second part of the conversation on the sacred dimension, we're going to dive further in and explore how have we experienced that for ourselves, and then invite you into the conversation of how might you cultivate this sacred depth of yourself.
Yeah, just to get into language a bit, the sacred is with us all the time. We hold that as true, that these deeper patterning forces are there. And so it's just becoming aware that it's there. We're in a relationship with it. And my own relationship with the sacred was, growing up I actually converted. I had a religious experience going to an evangelical rally and receiving Jesus as my Lord and Savior. So that the sacred was like something it was so powerful, it was running my life. But really, my sense of the sacred depth is it's that it neither is controlling us, nor can we control it and turn it into a genie. But we are in a relationship with it. And we can be in an emanational relationship with it in which it is such an overwhelming, powerful, trustworthy force that really has us. And that's what a lot of religious fundamentalism is about. Or a lot of religious literalism is about, a lot of what religious traditional society is about, because that emanational relationship becomes a way of life, it governs everything, it's unquestioned. Or we have broken from it and we are in a relationship of incoherence. Incoherence could be, we don't even think that we have a connection to our sacred depths, our secret source. I think much of human life today is like that, where different shards of inspiration takes hold of us. I think the best one is just living in New York and walking down Madison Avenue and seeing people with shopping bags with the brand names essentially of gods on their elbows, Gucci and what have you. But these gods, and they're gods because they take a pound of flesh from us. They take our whole paycheck from us. We give our life and our life energy to worship these gods. But these gods have such a short expiration date, because the next week we have to go worship at the altar of Gucci again or what have you. And then very quickly they're dispatched into thrift stores. And so we have to keep on worshiping it. Renewing our connection with it. And then when we are in emanation for so long, where we take one shard of this intimate relationship, this unconscious relationship with it, is we can go into deformation and get into destructive death. And the question is, how do we move through these acts and come into transformation?
Thank you. Please take a breath with me, with us. And as you continue to listen, I invite us to continue to notice our physicality, our bodies. And noticing the breath. And listen. And for me, the entry point into any kind of sacred experiences is awareness.
So where do you experience the emanational relationship with the sacred, breaking, reforming, entering into transformation? One of the phrases Manfred taught was we have to empty ourselves when we truly want to welcome the transformative experience of going to Act 3, not get arrested in emanation, not get arrested in incoherence where we grab onto something and then take that one small shot of a sacred experience and turning it into the everything. You know, where are you on that home? On that journey?
So I'm sitting pausing in silence for a moment because I'm aware that in talking about these conversations, the sacred, we're entering into potentially fraud territory. Because
Fraud or fraught or both?
Or both, both. Because
Fraudulent
it's
and
like
fraught.
talking about the unnameable, sharing experiences that it's hard to even describe to myself sometimes. So I just want to name that so that as I'm going on with this, I give myself permission to fumble about as I'm having this conversation with you. And I think that is part for me to stay conscious in experiencing. I'm also reflecting out loud with you, how has the experience of COVID-19 and all that's happening in the world, particularly in the United States where we're from, how has the last 9 months, 2020, how have we as a collective human species experienced the sacred depth of ourselves? How have I experienced the sacred depth of myself? Because I know prior to COVID, and I have cultivated meditation practice for over 20 years. I've experienced many things in my life, including getting lost in the middle ocean, almost died, psychotherapy, psychedelic experiences. There's so much in life that I have experienced, and yet, for me, it is true what they say, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And so, you're asking the experience of emanation and then the incoherence of sacred experiences. Is that the question?
Or just the experience of the drama of, yes, let's start with that.
You know, how is it possible for me, for the second time in my life, just pick up my life in New York and move to Bali? Now,
when was the first time? Just to be clear.
When I left Vietnam as a teenager, as a refugee, escaping from the communists. And then the second time, literally, I had less than 24 hours to pick up my things, leave New York City, got to Bali, didn't even know that we're going to be here or where we're going to be when I got on that plane. I just know that we're going to meet each other in Singapore and then decide.
And then our home in New York is now gone.
Yeah.
Just to say that it was a shock and a turn of events. And the last time you were a real economic and political refugee. And
Yeah.
I'm sensing you're saying there's a sense of being cast out of something, although in some ways our economic circumstances and safety is better, but there's some loss, some...
Yeah, and my assumption
Maybe.
is that I'm not alone in this. I assume that many of you who are watching and listening in, that you have experienced some kind of break from what used to be, who you were. Let me speak from my own experience, who I thought I was. I was a professor at the university. I was flying all over the world doing these workshops, teaching, meditating with people. And I continue to do those things, and yet something fundamentally shifted in me. So we experiment with a new process here. Whenever we have the bell, we all take a breath together. Please take a breath with us. And so I'm just reflecting on the experience of letting go of all the work that I thought I was doing, and then focusing on what can I do now? What's most important now? How may I serve now? And so 9 months ago, we started the Mindkind Fellowship and Practice. And what started out was a 3 weeks experiment of what it's like, how to deal with all this uncertainty, how to deal with all the unraveling of our lives, of my own life. And I think we are highly privileged, and yet at the same time, there's so much unknown and uncertainty.
And a loss.
And a lot of
Actually,
loss.
a
Loss of
loss.
friendships, What happened during the death of
George
George Floyd and the aftermath of that awakened me to aspects of my life that I have not paid attention to, or I have paid attention to but not deep enough. And so in the experiment of gathering people and sit and breathe together for half an hour, practice every week.
Every day.
It's
twice a
actually
day.
every day, twice a day. Something that I didn't think it was possible because I was too busy making money and flying around being an important person.
So
And-
what I'm hearing is you created what I saw was, because you did it, I was having my own process, is you created a container to deal with the disruption of our lives. And the container allowed for the emergence of something new.
Yeah.
I want to look at the emanational break, when something inspires us or has captured us and it breaks, and there is a death involved.
I mean, there's nothing more obvious to me than COVID right now in the last 9 months. Collectively, we experienced that.
So I think COVID is a literal and also a metaphorical and also a break with what we have held to be sacred in our lives. And I'm wondering what you have held sacred that broke or had broken but you were not aware of it, and now you look at it. I am quite deeply aware that in many ways I've held the West in a kind of sacred emanational relationship. I left Asia in the early 1980s with a huge inspiration about what my life in the United States was going to be. I must say that at that time, Singapore was a middle-class country, but how shall I say, it was hot, it was sticky. The rest of Asia was, it's embarrassing to say now, smelly. We really were a developing world, and so coming to the United States was literally a breath of fresh air, a breath of not just physically fresh air, but intellectually fresh. Just the capacity of people to think so differently, and for myself to be able to think differently. And that was the freedom. And to look at how the West and America has dealt with itself in the last 2 years over race and over COVID and its incompetent response to that and its violent response to that, was for me, uh, think I have experienced bewilderment, grief, anger, and disappointment. It feels like something has died for me. And in reflecting back now after 9 months, what I'm aware of, what has died is
Or what has broken apart?
which is dying. Is what I thought the West was for the world, for me, the relationship of adulation and valorization that the West, Western society, and even in a kind of a really childlike way, white people as being confident, competent, knowing, more beautiful, superior, and a place of I have come to the West to learn, to build myself up. And I think in the last year or so, it's almost Asia saying, look, we have learned from you. We have been a student, you have been a teacher, we have learned from you. I have certainly learned with my degrees, but I think Asia is the collective saying, you did come, you did conquer us, we were colonized, and there's something we needed to learn called science, called good governance, called your religion, called democracy, whatever we've learned. And in COVID, it's like Asia was saying to the West, we learned. That's why we have had a better performance here in Singapore, China, South Korea, Japan. It's not like Asia got better by doing traditional medicine. It survived COVID by really learning Western science and public health. So the first act was to say, we have learned, we got better. We're not trying to compete, or they're not trying to compete. I don't have to use the we and you anymore. Asia is saying to the West, we have learned.
And when you say the West, what do you mean?
The United States, Europe, Western science, what that whole thing represented. And not only did the West look down on what Asians had done, but started attacking it for human rights abuses or saying the numbers are all made up. And I think there was a sense as we lived here in Asia, a sense of astonishment and hurt. So you don't really respect that we the students have become equal or even better than you. But for me, the real break was to look at what was going on back home, and here I'm saying home as in the US, and seeing not only was there this huge arrogance and discounting of the Asian achievement, of China's achievement. Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes at the beginning, but just the last few months seeing, it's one thing that we know you're prejudiced and don't look at the achievements of other cultures. You, or we.
Who are you and who are we?
Well, the you now is to look back at the US. I mean, I could say we. It's like the US hasn't even taken care of our own people. And to let the deaths take place, 300,000, that to me is a real break and a real sense of disillusionment and waking up to, disappointment, severe disappointment and sadness.
I think it's more than just disappointment. It's a kind of devastation because an emanation gets shattered.
Yes.
Yeah. I think for me, I would say the idea of individualism. I think I came to the US leaving behind some part of my culture from Vietnam, from Asia, coming into the US, really develop this individual self. I am successful, I'm going to become this and this and this and this.
Let's take a breath together.
And I think the shattering is that I realized that how much time I spend focusing on my success and my achievement. Yes, I'm. Luckily for me, I have cultivated enough self-awareness to know that I'm connected.
Yeah.
I'm connected to you. I'm connected to you. We are connected to each other. I'm aware that I'm not only experience that at an intellectual level, I consistently experience that. And at the same time, I realize how I've been swimming in this water that called American exceptionalism. I didn't even know that I was swimming in it until I moved here to Bali.
Yes.
And then reflecting back, like, wow, so much of my life is spent on what freedom do I have for myself. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but I think the waking up for me is realizing, oh, there's another way of being that the East, Asia, that allows me to remember, oh, what it's like to be together.
And to take care of each other and
What
not
is it
argue
like to
about
share?
the rights to wear masks or not wear masks. I think, and I'm still a bit energized by that. That individualism was a religion, is a religion. It has an emanational hold, and I think that has broken for us. We can detach and see that we now have a choice to choose other ways of being. I think we see friends in the West struggling with their own sense of individualism, and I think we want to highlight that you're having a religious relationship with this ideology called individualism. And it is a God, it has energy, it has its place, but if you keep on applying it even when it's leading you down to destructive death and deformation, then you are really in the drama of deformation. And that's no good for you and no good for us. And so, to notice that what's actually broken is these unconscious emanational relationships of devotion for people in America to individualism, for white people to whiteness, and for those of us who are not and who did admire or emulate what it means to be Western or white people. These are all breaking now, and we are now swimming in this field of, is democracy better, communism better, and which side is better? And we're all being triggered to look for these new gods to give us a sense of ourselves, of our skin, of our group. And if we are to move successfully into transformation, we have to notice what has broken and not to cling and to empty ourselves of these attachments so we can listen to the sacred. The good news of our relationship with the sacred is that the deep patterning forces that call us forth now to co-create with each other, you and I and China and US or whatever, is that humility of self-emptying, of collective self-emptying, that we can listen to what the deeper patterning forces are calling out from us. And I think just as the sea is calling us to pay attention to it, there is a silence in which we must now ask ourselves, what do I want? Can I listen to what you say you want, what you want? Can you listen to what I say I want? Because from the depths, it's a attentiveness to all of us wanting respect, wanting dignity, that political co-creation to what we can and need and must and willing to do is an attentiveness to the fulfillment of our highest self. And our highest self wants friendship, again, wants cooperation, wants the experience of beauty. In some ways, we have to let go of these attachments. And it's really a call to just boldly say, white people have to give up their attachment to whiteness. Westerners have to give up their attachment to being Western. Now, do Asian people have to give up their attachment to being Asian? Yes. But I want to say that historically, coming back to Asia, to know that Asians had to give up their sense of Asianness because of all the wars and colonizations and defeats. And in some ways, we are coming back to Asia and seeing, oh, Asians have been through their journey of transformation and had already given that up. You know, many are still being ultra-nationalistic, they're still in a sense of incoherence, they want more of things. But we are noticing that there has been greater facility and practice with letting go. I think what I see Asians giving up is their adulation of the West, that our teachers knew more. And it's like, no, they don't. What Asians have to take care of is not to get into pride that somehow we are ahead, but a real humility that, no, our teachers don't know more. We must not pretend, here I speak we as an Asian now, knows more, know more. And we, and now I speak as a Western person, have to let go of our pride and vanity and need to dominate and to preach and tell other people how they should get their act together because they still live in brutal, horrible regimes. And really a place of deep opening where we can move through these attachments, let them die, let it go, and listen to what we are being called. And I think what we are being called to do is to really look at the fifth phase of our being, the ecological phase, that we are connected to the earth, to the environment. It's not a thing, we come from it, we are of it. And if we don't attend to it's not an it, it's mother, then we perish.
Please take a breath with me. Feeling the earth that is your body. Feeling the earth that is this body. That's a lot that you just shared. And perhaps allowing a little more time for silence, for solitude, for being in nature, being in the presence of each other, listening. And this is what I'm experiencing through this practice of showing up every day, twice a day, with a group of people and sit and breathe and then just listen to each other. People from all over the world. And I don't know how or why it's happening. But I'm experiencing a kind of love for people that I've not experienced before. And I am aware that I'm still at if I was to swim in the ocean, I'm still near the shore, and the ocean is so big, and the potentiality of that. So this is our invitation to you, to us, to go further, go further out into the unknown. To go further out into the unknown and listen. So thank you again for listening. Please take a breath with us.